Hey guys, Adam with BizNexus. Today I had a chance to sit down with Omar Garcia from VR Business Brokers. We dove into some really interesting stuff about his approach to buyer qualification, which is really interesting today considering how many fundless sponsors and individual acquirers are out there flooding the market. Talked about why some buyers make it through with Omar, how he decides who gets access to what confidential information. So I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Obligatory plug for today. If you're not familiar with BizNexus, be sure to check us out, biznexus.com. For do-it-yourselfers, we have an improved marketplace, thousands of acquisition opportunities, updated daily. We have a community where you can network with people like Omar, search by keywords for potential niche partners or members of your deal team, or just let the AI overlap suggestions take care of that for you. And the really innovative solution that we're most active with these days has to be OmniSource. That's a deal sourcing platform that we built for our corp dev teams, family offices, private equity groups. Combines all the on-market, off-market targets for your mandate into one streamlined, stupid, simple experience. We're currently helping deploy about $6 billion plus in committed capital between our partner and concierge members on that platform. And we have been opening that up more to individual repeat acquirers. Should keep going with that direction into 2025. So if you're interested in a demo, you can schedule that directly from BizNexus or just go to omnisource.ai and schedule the demo. We're just kicking this podcast thing back up, so shaking off the rust a bit. If you like what you hear, please spread the word, give us a review, some stars, so we can feel good about putting more effort into the content going forward. Disclaimer from the always present legal team. Podcast conversations don't necessarily reflect the views of BizNexus Incorporated. Everything you hear is informational news and updates from around the industry. We're not recommending any investments. We're not offering any investment advice. Be sure to do your own homework. All right. Omar Garcia, how you doing today?
Doing great, Adam. How about you?
I'm doing well. Thanks. So if you're not familiar with the Roundup, we are resuscitating the BizNexus Roundup podcast and these Roundup chats. And joining me this week is a repeat performer, Omar Garcia from VR Business Brokers. So welcome again, Omar.
Thank you, Adam.
So you've been a part of our partner network for quite some time, and you're an industry agnostic M&A advisor. You're over there in Texas, based out of San Antonio. And one thing that I've noted from day one with you is that you have a very hands-on practice, right? So somehow you still wind up being a top office for VR, year over year, despite that level of personalization. That's why we've asked you on today, dive a bit into running that hands-on practice and touching on specifically the buyer qualification process and how you're doing that. Because you're doing more with that buyer qualification than most of the M&A advisors who we're working with on an ongoing basis. And I'd love to just dive into your process for gatekeeping, when it comes to sharing the SIM specifically, why some buyers are making it through, why others don't, and then your process for vetting buyers before sending them over any sort of confidential information on the seller. So I'm excited that you've agreed to dive into this one because I know it's a very unique aspect of your practice. So I'm really excited that you have agreed to share that. But why don't you just give the listeners who aren't familiar with you some context about you and your firm and your day-to-day and why that's relevant to what we're talking about with lower middle market buyers.
Correct. Yes, Adam, we started our practice 16 years ago in 2000, end of 2008, beginning of 2009. A very challenging time to get into the business, to be honest with you. We started really doing very small deals, very small transactions, and many of them. Through time, we have grown our practice to do just bigger deals. I mean, they're not huge, but they're good deals for us. We do deals typically between 1 million and 10 million. That's kind of our bracket. We have 4 brokers in our team, 4 partners. All of us do the same size deals. All of us have been working together for 16 years. So we're very, very hands-on. So maybe 6-8 years ago, we put together a CRM. I mean, we had one. It was custom made. It wasn't ideal. We moved into a new one that kind of flows better, and that has helped us a lot to manage our buyers. So we typically get buyers from 2 sources. One of them is we'll go out and look for strategic buyers or PE groups and we're proactive on that. And that's not what I plan to talk about today. I plan to talk about those deals where we get buyers from the listing websites, such as Biz Buy Sell or some others that we use, even our own website. So the process is that the buyers inquire, they ask, they request for information for a given business, or CRM in automatic sends them an NDA and explains our process. And our process is a little bit unique because after they sign the NDA, I talk to them basically, or the broker or the partner talks to each one of the buyers that signs the NDA. So what we have found is just a gamut of buyers. Some of them, I will call them like very junior or naive buyers that they think because they have signed an NDA, they have earned the right to the sim, and that's not the case in my practice. Actually, just telling them that we have to interview them before we send information disqualifies probably 30% of the inquiries that we get. In some cases, we get some buyers that get upset because they think they have earned the right to the sim, and we tell them, hey, we do things differently. But on the other side of that coin is you get buyers that say, hey man, I get it, I'm looking for a very specific business. And you cannot imagine the amount of information I have received from some of your peers in other firms or businesses that I'm not interested or don't meet my criteria. Okay. So we get that gamut. It's been so good that I have even had buyers tell me, you know what? I'm thinking of selling a business that I own. I really like your process. I really like how you do things. I really like how you guard your sellers. And let's talk about listing my business. So we've had both streams. So that's kind of the 30,000 feet overview. I mean, the nitty gritty is not that complicated. I mean, I tell the buyer.
Before we jump into the actual specifics on the questions, because I know some of this, when you and I chatted before this, you mentioned that some of it is just gut feel, right? Like if you have a deal that has kind of a problem with buyer concentration, you know that's one of the boxes that a private equity buyer will check. And so if it's a private equity buyer who signs the NDA, you're going to want to connect and have that conversation with them to make sure that this is something that they'd still want to move forward on. But you're highlighting the ocean of first-time buyers out there who might not be familiar with the process yet, why a broker would want to screen out buyers. I mean, I think there's a lot of chatter out there about buyers trying to bypass the brokers, go straight to the end seller, which in some cases can make sense. But you're a gatekeeper for a reason, and mainly for the seller. Obviously, that's your fiduciary responsibility.
That is correct.
But at the end of the day, if it's a cluster of buyers getting in there and it's a bidding process, that doesn't make for a good process, for a good transaction. Maybe if you just touch on why you're doing what you're doing, how this not only benefits the seller, but can benefit the buyer by having that conversation, which weeds out 30% of the inquiries, which is a little shocking.
Right off the bat is a filter. Yes. So basically, when we talk to the buyer, it does benefit them in the sense that I tell them, hey, I want to learn about you, then I'll tell you about the business. And if it's a good fit, then I'll send you the information. Okay. And I tell them, I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the business. But before we get into the business, I want to know about them. So who are you? How long have you been looking for a business? What industries? Why do you want to buy? What's your financial backing? Have you been pre-approved for an SBA loan if that's the route that we're going? Are you a private equity? Are you a strategic? Who are you? And why do you want to acquire this business? Okay. So I listen to them. I mean, I've had buyers that tell me, well, I'm a search funder and I'm really looking for a business with this criteria. Well, this is not going to be a match for you. I've had others that tell me, well, I've been looking, this is my 120th business that I look into. And then I get the sense that they're super picky and they're looking for perfection at a very low price. All the business that we have represented in 16 years, and there are hundreds of them, none of them are perfect. Okay. So, I mean, that's a buyer. I mean, before I send them anything, I want to make sure that, if it's not a good fit, I want to let them know you're not a good fit. Sometimes we have competitors and they disclose that they're competitors. And then I say, you know what, before I go any further, I got to make sure that my seller is comfortable that I share information with you. So I put a stop right there. I go back to my seller. tell him, hey, I spoke with so-and-so. He owns a similar business 200 miles from you. Are you okay that I talk to him because there might be some overlap with clients or employees? And then based on that feedback, I go back and discuss with that seller. I mean, some of them do get frustrated because they really intend to buy the business. But if we're too early in the process and my seller prefers to sell to somebody outside from the industry, then I'm going to tell him just that. And we've had that happen more than once. Okay. So it's just discerning who the buyer is, if it's a good fit for the business or not, and then telling him the truth of the business. So yes, I am in the business of selling businesses, but it's a difficult process. So I want to make sure that through my first hurdle, which is second hurdle. The first one is getting to this goal. The second one is having the conversation of the business, that they know what are the weak spots of the business. And I sold a restoration business a couple months ago, and the seller will get up at 2 or 3 in the morning every day. The buyer will likely have to do the same thing for the at least initial months, if not the first year. So I would explain that to them. And if that's a no-go, then we stop it right there. I mean, I've had some wonderful buyers that I'm like, this guy is going to buy the business. But when I tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, some of them say, this is not for me. So why should I send the sim to that person? I tell them that that's fine. I understand. If you change your mind, call me. I mean, we'll go to the next stage with you. If they're
So
not financially sound, because I get to talk about them, some of them, they don't disclose everything. I put a stop to it too. Yeah. I'm sorry, Adam.
no, it's I'm just trying to recap what you went through. I mean, for people who aren't really familiar with this process and want to ask why this is an industry standard, but it's really not. Slipping that call in, that one-to-one call, most people, most M&A advisors, at least most brokers who I work with, aren't doing that. But really, to recap what you're looking for, first, you're just making sure they have money, right? So they're not looking for one of these 100% seller financing deals that the gurus are all out pushing, and assuming they check that box, do they actually know what they're looking for? Or is it one of these search funds where they're looking for 500,000 cash flow in the service industry and full stop, like that's it? Maybe that's not going to be a fit for your deal. But then on the other end of the spectrum, maybe they're too picky, right? They're reading between the lines. You got a lot of academic search funders out there who are coming right out of the classes, and they're looking for very specific boxes to be checked. And they only have one acquisition, so it's not a private equity group that's doing multiple acquisitions and kind of hedge their bets, but they're just overly picky and not pulling the trigger on anything. And then that last box that you checked on is are they a competitor, right? Are they just trying to dig for some information, or is it something that's a little more sensitive and you need to chat with the owner? So like all of that seems totally reasonable, right? That's your job. That's what you want to vet to have a productive deal process and not waste any time. But with the actual conversation, so you have brokers who have CRM set up where once you sign the NDA, the info goes out. You have platforms out there that have the little toggle box to automatically send a SIM the second an NDA is submitted. That's removing the broker from that part of the process. So why isn't it industry standard that the broker hops in here, right? Not to answer the questions of the SIM, but right here. Why isn't this call taking place 90% of the time instead of 10% of the time?
I mean, I would say 98% of the time it's not taking place. I talk about this with other peers of mine, and they don't do it because it's really, really time consuming. I mean, I literally talk to 50 buyers, 70 buyers before I find the right one. So it's not like an hour conversation. It's like a 20-minute conversation. And once I'm in this process, I mean, my schedule is booked from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I talk to 10, 12 people. I go one after the other, after the other, after the other. And because there is a lot of demand right now, but they don't do it because it's very time consuming.
But for you, like, as an intermediary who's ultimately getting paid on a successful transaction, right? You feel that this makes for a better transaction, increases the chances of a successful transaction taking place. So it's a lot of work that you're putting in that maybe other intermediaries aren't. But are you just thinking if you get a better pool of buyers in there, you're going to have a better office?
I think I take my fiduciary responsibility very serious. I mean, my sellers, they become my friends. I want to protect them. I want to make sure that I don't send their information out nilly-willy to anyone that just sends an email. I mean, signing an NDA is so easy nowadays. You just do it electronically. So, I mean, I ask them to disclose how much money they have. Sometimes they don't, and I talk to them, and I want to understand why. But the key reason is just protecting my sellers. I mean, they're the ones that pay me. So, and then the other reason is once we move downstream and we get couple LOIs, because typically we get multiple LOIs. I have a really good background on each one of these buyers. I make my notes in the CRM. I know who's who. I have a feel for them before they became a candidate to the deal, because they change. Once they're interested, they're going to present their best foot forward. They might be changing their colors a little bit if they know there is competition, because they want to be the winner of that competition. But if I met them, I know who they are from before they were highly interested and highly competitive to get into this deal. I have a leg up on them.
Yeah. And then if you have that relationship with the people who submit LOIs, once you've accepted one, if that falls out, I'd imagine that makes you more likely to be able to slip somebody in to the process pretty
Most
quickly.
And the seller knows that I'm doing this. And I tell him, hey, this week I spoke with like 18 guys. I mean, 12 of them, they don't make any sense. The top three or four are so and so and so. Let's see what happened. So he knows that I'm working. Listen, at the end of the day, the seller is going to either write my check or allow the bank to fund my fee. If he knows that I'm working and he knows that I have his interest higher than my own interest, I'm going to be paid my full commission.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the day, it does benefit me. It doesn't seem as linear as, well, let me get as many deals done. Yeah. I mean, I do develop a really deep relationship with the sellers. They are my friends. They are somebody that I want the best for. And this is a way of me expressing that.
Yeah. So obviously fiduciary responsibility, that's number one. That's why you do this. But then also maybe de-risking losing your commission or having to negotiate your commission on the tail end because you put that time in, because you've earned that trust.
Correct.
Right? Having those potential buyers, once you choose an LOI, if a deal does fall through, which happens all the time, you have a good working relationship with those other buyers. So in theory, you can just pull them in more quickly than if you didn't.
But the number one reason is just to protect the information of my seller. That the less people that have access to it, the less likely that it's gonna get out there, right?
Right.
And if the people that have access to it, they're truly engaged in a process of buying a business, and they're qualified and all of that, it's not likely that the information is going to go out. When you have problems is when you're sending this information nilly-willy. Yeah.
But so you're also, like, as you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, you've been doing this really since 2008, 2009. You've been out there for a while, right? And most brokers who have the level of success, fair to say, right? I mean, you are kind of top three offices.
We're a top office in the VR system, probably in the top 5% nationally, I would guess. Yeah.
Year over year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you have that success, but a lot of that's coming through your referral flywheel, right?
That is correct.
The majority of deals are coming through referrals. So would you say that this is a practice that has contributed to that? I mean, you had one story about a buyer basically coming back as a seller because they went through this process. And even though it may have been a bit of a pain for them to go through it, they were thinking like, well, hey, I'd kind of like this if I were on the other end. Can you touch on that example?
Yeah, well, this particular person, I mean, he was openly buying a business, so he dealt with some of my other peers out there, and then he dealt with me, and he was surprised. It was like, I haven't seen this in any other broker's office. I like it. I mean, I plan to sell this other business. I like to do it with you because I like how you handle your buyers. Yeah.
So
and then the other thing is, like, with private equities, we also get like private equities and family offices from some of these websites. And then, I mean, some of these companies that we're representing have some of their weak spots or the bad and the ugly. It's not going to make it through any private equity. I already know, or he's spoken to a bunch of them. So I tell him right up front, hey, I mean, this particular business has high concentration. 3 clients make 90% of the sales. So they're grateful that they don't have to go to the next mile and take the sim to their bosses or whatever. I mean, we just killed it right there, and it's better for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still amazed that this is not really industry standard. For the most part, the majority of business brokers out there aren't doing this. I think it's a key differentiator of that role, why you want to hire a sell-side intermediary if you're running a transaction. What would your advice be for these brokers that are out there either, engaging, having someone build a CRM that just automates the sim going out after NDA submission, or the platforms that are out there doing the same thing? If a broker's thinking of, clearly you think that this winds up saving time downstream, right? It's more work up front, but you're saving wasted time downstream, and it's clearly working for you from a success standpoint. What would you say to those brokers out there that are not doing that, the other 98% in your mind?
I mean, a lot of them I understand. If you're doing, this doesn't work. We do a few deals a year. We're very high touch. We do deals from certain sizes. I mean, if you're doing a lot of very small deals, and when you're doing small, you got to do a lot just to stay afloat, right? I don't see how you could do this because you just don't have the bandwidth to do it. So it does require for you to go upstream a little bit. Okay. The other people, I mean, I have peers, and
but has this process helped you go upstream, right?
I believe it has, because those relationships that I've developed with those sellers or owners, that information went back to whoever referred them to me.
Yeah.
And I have several, I don't have many referral sources, but the ones that I have, they trust me. They know that I will do a good job for their referrals. They know that I place them higher than my own interest, and my sellers are super happy with me. Yeah. So it has helped get more leads on that bracket size of deals that we do. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then what would you say to the buyers who are frustrated out there, who want to make it past Omar, right? Who want to make it past the gatekeeper? To prepare, what should you be coming in with to increase your chances of making it through that conversation and getting a sim?
Well, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I've learned that I have to control the process to make it to closing. If nobody controls the process, the deal is not going to happen. It's going to die. So they gotta, they have to go through the process the way I have designed it, and it's for the benefit of everyone. I mean, if they can invest 15, 20 minutes in a conversation, they're not real buyers. They're just posers. They're just curious. They just want to see what's out there. I mean, if you're serious about it, you'll spend time with me. You want to learn about the business. You tell me who you are.
Yeah. All right. I mean, good arguments for the seller, for the buyer, for the intermediary. Yeah. Hopefully we get this number up from 2%, right, to a larger percentage of intermediaries. This is, I mean, it's a great differentiating factor, right? If you're trying to market yourself versus other intermediaries, or just someone who's thinking about not going the intermediary route at all, this seems like a no-brainer part of the process. But you really appreciate your thoughts, appreciate you taking the time to come here today. Real quick, for anyone who does want to learn more about this process, wants to learn more about you, reach out. Where can we find you?
Yeah, we're at VR Business Brokers. Our office is in San Antonio, Texas. You could go to www.vrsanantonio.com. Yeah. Or you could call me 210-966-4106.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll have all that in the show notes for you guys. And thank you for listening. That'll be it for today. So Omar, thank you again for taking the time. I know you're busy, so I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. Great chatting with you.
All right, we'll sign out with that. We'll have you back on for the next one next quarter.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Omar.